All right. I see you guys are all smiling at camera, Mr. Fred Price. You guys all there. So hello, nice to see you. Nice of you to join us. Definitely if we're going to be taking questions here in a little bit, we're going to have discussions. My biggest fight with the roundtable has always been, can we get people to participate and talk instead of Tony talking all the time? Lee and Matthew are the ones that pretty much take, most of it. We like to hear from you, like to know what's going on, see what issues you're having. So definitely would be nice. Let's see. It's just about time. Look at that. Nice, straight on the button. So we're starting it on time. Well, welcome to the roundtable. Just to be more on the serious side, it is June 13th, a Thursday. We'll definitely be seeing a lot of heat now. Well, we are seeing a lot of heat. What am I saying? In this case, we're going to be 108 here. So therefore, it's a nice, crisp, lovely summer day there. It's here. It's official. So with that said, just to remind you all that on the Powertrain Training website, I do have an AC, air conditioning, three-part webinar that was recorded. You're welcome to look at. In this case, yes, I do charge a little money because nothing is free. These websites cost money. But yeah, if you're not fluent in AC, definitely want to look at that. You ever wonder what's going on with an AC system or never had any formal air conditioning training, I highly recommend watching that. And I'm available for questions too afterwards. So if you want to catch me live, all you got to do is send me an email or leave me a text message and we'll set up a time to actually help you out. So with that said, I guess my biggest thing going on right now is the fact that the training has slowed down a little bit, but there are shops that have taken the initiative to get classes either on location or to go on location. Um, the one thing that I'm in awe as I work with technicians and get phone calls, let's get one thing clear. You want to know how things work, and in this case, when you're dealt with an issue, when you don't understand what's going on with the truck, no matter what it is, whether it be an after treatment, common rail, ECM, whatever, you got to figure out things. You try your best, and sometimes we don't succeed, but that's why we have roundtables to help one another out. I'm foolish enough to give my cell phone number, so I do help people from time to time. But in this case, I guess what I'm trying to get at is please take time to educate yourself. I mean, have some pride. Let's get to know how things work. If you don't know how they work, it's very important because time and time again, the the phone calls or the issues I see at shops, this could have been resolved a lot easier if the technician knew what he was doing. So if technicians don't know what they're doing, they don't know how things work, or they're just guessing, well, I don't know, or you're still weak on that electrical stuff, definitely got to keep that in mind. So with that said, all I'm asking is, if you don't want to take training with me, that's fine. But what I'm trying to say is get some training. There's a lot of you that don't know the after treatment, don't know what's going on. And to top it off, you're weak in the service information. In other words, if you have your all data as your identifix, your pro demands, you're not fully competent in it. So you want to be competent in understanding how it works. So thought I mentioned that. So I'll launch things and get things going. Hopefully, once again, you can all hear me. We got the roundtable here, but what are the issues that I've been seeing lately with a lot of the drive-in service shops that I visit or go train at? Has been delete tunes. Man, there's some states that they're running rampant with trucks that are deleted. You got to understand here and where I'm at in Clark County, they do visuals and DOT and Highway Patrol are doing inspections. So it's not very common to see many deleted trucks out here. But out in the East or the Midwest, yeah, there's many rural areas that I see a lot of deletes. But with delete tunes comes crappy programs. And what I mean by that is you get some tunes that are installed on these trucks where they have deleted all the emission controls, which we all know is a no-no, but it's happening. And the problem I'm having with that is, and shops are having with that, is the fact that the tunes will turn off all the diagnostic trouble codes, not just the emission related, but they just turn them all off, And in this case, as they turn them all off, that creates a little bit of a hardship in figuring out drivability issues when it's deleted. So I've always said that you always want to, well, in other words, if a person or a customer, owner of a truck wants to delete it, that's your business. I'm not involved with that. But in this case, get one where you can put the truck back to stock for diagnostic purposes, right? And in the event you do sell it, let's keep that in mind, that if you do sell the truck, what's going to happen is you need to put her back to stock in many cases. So it all depends. The other thing I see is electrical. I just mentioned it right now. Electrical, scope usage, voltage drop testing. We see a lot of those issues. So in this case, what I'm trying to say is that, you definitely want to pay attention to your electrical testing that you're doing, so definitely want to keep that in mind. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, once again, like I've said, before, and I say it now, is that you definitely want to get up on electrical common rail. Oh God, with common rail, I was talking about common rail last week, and I talked it over with a group of guys I did a conference call with, and it's like, really, guys, you still don't quite get how a common rail system works, and you're diagnosing it the wrong way. Yeah, common rail is another issue. And obviously one of the major ones that I come across is after treatment. We're still seeing issues with after treatment. A lot of guys are struggling with it or just don't know it. We'll talk about a case here today. And engine. Oh God, engine. We're going to mention a little things about engine because of the fact that oil, as you know, these engines are heavily, emission controlled, meaning we're constipating, we're congesting them, and we're seeing issues with that too as well, because, we got to somehow measure compression, knows what's going on with the compression. But what is new? What is new on the Ford 6.7? Where are we at with horsepower on that HO motor they've released? 500 horsepower, 1,200 foot-pounds of torque. So you guys, if you're not aware, on the non-HO applications, because there are now two applications for the PowerStroke 6.7, and that is one's 475 horse, 1,050. It's still a lot of power versus the HO model, but in this case, we're seeing major horsepower, while the Ram is still at the HO motors, 420 horsepower, 1,075 foot-pounds of torque. These are 23 numbers. Some of them 24 numbers. And the non-HO model on Ram is 370 horsepower, 850 foot-pounds of torque, while the Duramax L5P is at 470, 975 foot-pounds of torque. So as much as we see the horsepower, we see the torque major, that brings along problems on the question of longevity, like I've been saying. But if we look at the light duty side, we still got the 3-liter, which is doing well, going to be on Cadillacs. It's on the Yukons, that 3-liter inline 6 with 305 horsepower now on the LZO motor and 490 foot-pounds of torque. Just to give you an idea how that comes close to the first generation of Duramax 66 LB7, that was at 300 horsepower and 560 foot-pounds of torque. So this little inline 6 is just about at the same levels, just about, almost, about what that, that 3,500, 2,500 truck was putting out back in 2001. So for a half ton, but probably the biggest, I guess, positive thing I hear about, they're negatives, but the biggest positive I hear about the 3-liter is the fuel mileage. The fuel mileage is doing very well for many owners. As you know, the 1500 is still alive and well. This is the latest numbers for the Ram EcoDiesel. 260 horsepower, 480 foot-pounds of torque. Again, 8-speed automatic transmission with twin cam on the cylinder head. So dual cam setup there. So yeah, we're seeing some changes there. But the reality I've been saying on this slide, I've been showing for quite a few times, is this is where you come in. And the thing is, when I talk to shops like last week where I was, or the week before where I was too, I asked these shops, I go, what are the year trucks that you're getting? And it isn't surprising. Some of you are seeing 20 or if not 21 model year trucks where the customers don't want to take them to the dealership, or the dealership is just so backlogged on trucks, a month, 2 weeks, or 2 months, whatever. But in this case, the question has always been, given the price of these trucks, what are the odds that this truck will be in for warranty issues within a year of purchase? Hell, we've had some trucks come into the dealership that we have seen that have issues with little as 100 miles on them. So in this case, kind of tells you where the reliability is of the engine. So it's just amazing, the price tag of these trucks, but yet they're selling. But however is, what's the longevity of them, So what are the issues that we're having lately? This is all new right now for 2024, is fuel quality. We're still seeing fuel quality issues, not to mention contamination. I should have put in line there, contamination. As you know, I've been recommending Dieselcraft website because they sell test strips for testing the diesel for traces of diesel fuel, traces of not dye, god dang it, traces of DEF fluid in it. So we want to make sure that we don't have any traces of DEF fluid where the owner or the driver might have made a mistake and poured some of that DEF fluid in the fuel. Some of you know about this, some of you don't, but we should be now getting to a point we are testing the diesel quality. A good indicator also of diesel fuel quality is what kind of fuel economy are you getting, So in this case, could it be just the fuel itself that's causing where the cetane is actually compromised? For the longest time, there is a diesel hydrometer out there, so you can test the diesel. As a matter of fact, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be, well, I started then, I got busy, I didn't finish, but I'm going to do that old-fashioned fuel sample test. I'm going to go around here, Las Vegas area. I'm going to take a few samples of fuel, and I'm going to demonstrate the differences within the diesel fuel visually, and also using the hydrometer and also test strips. So just to demonstrate, is diesel fuel a constant? Then the operation of the after treatment, that's another problem we have is, yes, I mean that. In other words, technicians, if you want to call yourself a technician, is that, do you know everything about after treatment and how it works? That's another issue. So guys, get into a D rate, they're doing just drastic parts replacement, or they're just desperate trying to get it to go when if they knew how it worked, they probably could fix them. And also to keep in mind how to prevent issues with it, And we talked about DEF fluid already with the fuel quality, but again, in the fuel system, we still see the catastrophic fuel system failure. A lot of it not to the air, the CP4, but a lot of it also to DEF fluid contamination. D-rate issues goes back to the after treatment along with other issues that you can have, such as low rail pressure. And then the ugly one is engine oil, right? So engine oil is another problem that we see. So in this case, do we need to be changing these oils a lot more frequent? Like I've been showing on my Power Stroke 6.7 presentation, this is a 2011 engine, and you'll notice again, the recommended oil's always been 1030. I'm sure a lot of you know that. This was the introduction of the CJ4, while, for severe duty, they're calling for use of 5W40. Yeah. So in this case, here's a 2024 cap I took a picture of recently, and there you can see that has not changed between a 2011 and a 2024 6.7 Power Stroke. So we need to adhere to the recommendations of engine oil. You can use, 1540. Obviously, I know a lot of you have been doing it, but the point that I'm trying to make is what's the recommended oil. Quit trying to be the damn engineer. Everybody says, well, but then again, I got people that say, well, it runs better on this oil, but then those are the same people that seem to think that the truck runs better after a car wash. It gets more aerodynamic, right? Anyways, the point is, if you haven't seen the Ford Tech Talk YouTube video from Ford about the engine oil, they are saying no to CK4. So therefore, they're recommending the WSS 171F1. So in this case, we got to make sure we use the best quality oil. There is a website. I could click on it, but there is a website. You could just do a search on Google or your search engine and go ahead and look for Ford recommended WSS oils, and you'll get that link under the Ford website. So in this case, what I'm trying to say is you're going to be surprised what engine oils are not actually on the list. So therefore, I guess we can say that Ford has stepped up the requirements to make it work. So therefore, definitely want to get on that so you can get the best quality oil. And just because it's got a brand name on it and it's got a pretty bottle doesn't mean it's the best oil. Okay, so all I'm trying to say is I'm not going to recommend oil because people often ask me, Tony, what do you use on your diesels? I go, whatever's on sale. And then what I look for, does it meet the WSS CK4 certification? Both. So there is a way of meeting both, though there are many brands out there that are actually, again, seen very in other words, they're not meeting the requirement, just the CK4, not the WSS. So Ford has stepped up that requirement. So I welcome you to watch that video. Maybe want to look up the engine oil that you're using to see if it actually meets the requirement. But my beef has always been, are we actually changing that oil enough? So educate your customers. Those of you that are shops here, which most of you should be, you want to educate your customer on, see what's going on. In other words, hey, we need to be changing that oil. I'm recommending drastically for highway vehicles, 5,000 mile change intervals. For stop and go, between 3 to 4. That's where we're at because of the punishment that we're giving the engine oil. And like I've said before, remember, engine oil does not get overloaded. It gets what? I mean, engine oil gets overloaded. It does not get wore out. So therefore, remember that. So it gets overloaded. And we talked about the crankcase. We've done presentations on that too. So therefore, we've been accepting of crankcase and blow-by. We shouldn't be, because that is our number one enemy. So for those of you who've never been here, never had any training on this, remember, the number one enemy of a diesel particulate filter is crankcase gases. So therefore, that is blow-by. Okay, so all right, enough of that. The other thing I wanted to quickly mention, I ran into a few trucks a few weeks ago too, where people were not diagnosing what is your method, I guess? They're not diagnosing an alternator generator. First of all, you'll notice we're steering away from the name alternator because, again, it is a generator. It's got an output of DC, not AC. So with that said, the generator. How many of you are diagnosing these properly? Because the simple reason, well, the light is on, the battery light might be on the dash, or the voltmeter might be looking low, whatever, what kind of setup you got on the truck. But on 6.7s, for example, we see a lot of issues with technicians. What does not charging? Replace the generator. And guys, I have shop owners that call me and say, could you please teach these guys how to test a generator? It's like, really, is your solution to a non-charging event when it's not charging, your solution is to replace the generator? Really? In this case, what is the infamous yellow wire problem? For those of you that worked on 6.7 Power Strokes, you probably know this, right? The yellow wire, where we see an open or a loose connection or a terminal issue. So in this case, we got to get to know that. I've said this before, and I'm saying it again, that we need to understand how to diagnose this, right? So as we look at the different models, for example, that's a 2012, and you'll notice it's different on the 2017, where the yellow wire is now called a Gen RC on a 17 model, while on a 12 model is called a Gen Com. Okay, do you know how it works? Do you know what's going on? Do you know what all these little doohickeys in here are? Your stator, your rotor, your diodes, right? Your regulator, how it works, how it controls the field current. We have to know how that works. So in this case, both models, whether being young or old, I guess what I'm trying to say is we do have problems with the Gen yellow wire. Now, if you're in stressing and you don't know, I'm not just griping at you, there are codes that can be set, but there are, again, pinpoint tests. So if you use, like I do, I use not All Data, I use Identifix, but All Data has it too. In this case, you do want to look up the pinpoint test on how to diagnose these various different issues. So you may or should have these codes set, and there are pinpoint tests to understand how to diagnose this, because it's a sin that you're slapping the third generator on and still don't charge, or still has an intermittent charging problem, and you haven't fixed it. Really? So in this case, we got to get on board with that and learn how they work. So that's my beef on that. Not to mention, we've been talking a lot about CAN and CAN communication lately. And in this case, do you still know your diagnostic link connector? We got to get an image on our toolbox. I know a lot of you guys have pretty pictures on your toolboxes. It's time that we get a picture of this diagnostic link connector and start figuring it out. I'm already seeing it happen. I already diagnosed a few trucks where we're having communication issues or stalling issues. There are some YouTube videos that are even showing how much a taillight can cost as much as $4,000 to $5,000 if there's water intrusion. If you've seen that video from our other YouTube people that do Power Strokes and Forge, guys, it's scary. So therefore, can a short in the tail light cause pretty much the CAN communication to shut down and cause intermittent issues with startup? Yeah. So you imagine you're driving your truck, you're trying to diagnose it because it's stalling, and turns out the problem's in the tail light. And that's all networked controlled. So we have to get on board with the CAN network. I recently worked with a shop, and believe it or not, I don't remember who they are, but I gave him help anyways because I want to see. And he had a scope, and we were able to scope and look at, the CAN high and CAN low signal, and we were able to figure out he definitely had a CAN low problem. So I don't know where he finished up with that, but he luckily had a truck there, and he was able to compare that signal from that truck to the signal on his truck. So like even our friend James Wilson, who did a LabScope presentation last year about earlier this time, and he stated the best way to test and learn a lab scope. And what to do is to practice first on a known good truck. So that's my friend James Wilson telling you that. So, he knows what he's talking about. So therefore, definitely want to learn that, because guys, look at a knock sensor, okay? When you look at a knock sensor has usually 4 wires, if not 6. Power and ground, 2 CAN in and 2 CAN out. In other words, a CAN high, CAN low on one side, and CAN high, CAN low on the other side, maybe going through another knock sensor. So we see that happening across the board. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you need to fast, because I'm looking at the future here real quick within months, and I'm not talking about a year. We're seeing already a lot of issues with CAN communication issues, where we see short to grounds, opens, or a module failing, and that seems to be the #1 cause. So Lee and James here, that I know they're on here, they can tell you stories about that too. And in this case, all I'm trying to say is you need to get up to speed on learning the start of this, and that is at the diagnostic link connector. So a reminder for those of you that keep stalling, you work with your day-to-day stuff, but you need to invest in understanding the future instead of saying this is a big piece of crap truck. No, you're a tech, you ought to know it, and you need to actually practice it. So there you go. So just to give you a recap, I'm still using this diagram, but don't worry, I put a new one now. High-speed CAN off of 14 and 6. Look how it just goes all over the place. Follow A and B at the bottom. And like I've told you, you follow this network. There's A and B over here. You follow those 2 wires, CAN high and CAN low, where they go to different modules. And it continues on at J and K. And we see J and K coming up to the PCM here. Now, this is a 2013 truck here you're looking at. Right? So what do you think 2017, 2020 looks like, right? So there's your glow plug control module on a separate CAN network. And have we seen issues with a knock sensor shutting down intermittently the communication going to the PCM, thus stalling the truck? The answer is yes. So there you could see how these knock sensors, again, are connected together, and again, supplying that data for NOx output, right? In other words, what's the NOx sensor readings? So as we look at a 22, 23 truck, there's now the new wiring diagram for the diagnostic link connector. Here's a diagnostic link connector here. I think you could all see my cursor, I hope. There's your pin 16 and 14. There's your 3 and 11. Wow. Look what they're labeled as, HSCAN plus, HSCAN negative, where they go out to their respective networks. However, though, who's this guy over here? Well, this is going to a gateway module. So therefore, the gateway module from the diagnostic link connector is communicating to the gateway module. So that's the new guy. So yeah, we got to get up to speed. Obviously, I'm not going to get into it, but all I'm saying is this is your reality of how the gateway module is going to work. Have I already gotten my butt handed to me? And yes, I did, because last year I still I'm ticked off about not being able to figure it out. But this truck had a deleted ECM. So it kind of tells you how we were trying to bring it back to stock, and I couldn't figure out why we had a network problem. And half the stuff on the dash and on the console was not working. So yeah, we're going to have to understand how this all works. So please keep that in mind about networks. So it is important. And diagnosis has shown issues with connectors and power distribution issues, and this includes grounds. Always inspection, includes the basics, but you need to know what that little chart means of CAN high and CAN low from 2.5 to 3.5 on the CAN high, while CAN low is, again, 2.5 to 1.5 that you should be seeing on your scope. So you can start by just measuring 2.5 like I taught in classes, but eventually, we need to actually get understanding a scope to read those signals. So don't say that Tony didn't tell you. We're going to talk, maybe if I'm still alive, we're going to talk later on this year. But in this case, all I'm saying is we're going to talk about it, and you're going to find out we're going to see more CAN issues going on. It's happening heavily in the auto truck gas side, and we're also seeing it on the diesel side starting to happen. So be aware of that. And the last thing I just wanted to mention here, because we got those top topics to talk about, is the common rail number issue. Always remember, the #1 issue with common rail has always been contamination. Okay, it's always been contamination. So with that said, since contamination is a problem, we need to make sure that fuel quality is not the issue. We got to make sure that filters are replaced. I'll never understand how I find hay in fuel tanks from some of these farmers up north, because we got a lot of alfalfa farms. So therefore, all I'm saying is you better check that fuel quality. And, when I get people talking to me about, when I get people talking to me about, what, in other words, contamination, look at it that way. They seem to understand that, yeah, maintenance is a problem, but if you get a fuel filter, like say a Duramax, and that Duramax is really clogged, your restriction is high, you better go to the source, and that source is the fuel tank. So if you are replacing a fuel filter and that fuel filter is clogged, you better ask your customer after you replace it, come back in a week and let's measure the suction, see if it's not increased, and that can now justify the fact that I need to replace the fuel filter. So not fuel filter, I need to inspect the fuel tank. Yes, got to inspect the fuel tank. So therefore, yeah. The other thing we're having is fuel rail pressure issues, right? Because of contamination, it could actually get all over the place. So when you diagnose a common rail issue, whether it being low rail pressure, one of the things you always want to check is if you can open the system, you could take the regulator off, FRPR1, or the volume control valve. You want to inspect to see if it's not contaminated. Not always necessarily with metal, but always with some kind of debris that might be in the system. So if there's debris at the pump, there's debris in the rail, and there's debris in the injector, so let's not forget that. And then the lift pump, right? Is lift pump important? Yes. And nowadays, with the 3-liter Duramax, with the L5P, can you now read that pressure on the scan tool? Yes, you can. So in this case, that makes diagnostics a bit earlier, but on other trucks, you still need to put a gauge, whether it being a vacuum pressure gauge or a standard pressure gauge that you need to test. So let's keep that in mind. All right, so there you go. I just wanted to talk briefly about that. So if you have any comments on it, let me know. I just want to make sure we are where we are. As much as we want to talk technical, again, you need to understand the basics too as well of how things work. So again, the training is out there. You can take it from other people. I have my videos out there. I have my on-demand videos too. And I guess I'll talk about it real quickly. I have already talked about the Diesel Master course online. I've been working on that. It's already launched. We got a few people on it. So I've been fixing some things on it, but overall it's setting the base on what you're supposed to know in this business. So, all right. Now I'm going to change. Let me do a new share here. I don't know if he's on or not, but Larry over at in Santa Maria, I don't know if he's on or not. He better be on. He sent me this email. And in this case, I mentioned already in a previous drivability roundtable, I mentioned about that we said, and I even showed it to you from the GM website, which I didn't know, talking about ammonia slip. Now, for those of you who don't know after treatment, what I'm about to talk about is when DEF fluid is injected. Now, DEF fluid is 32.5% urea with water, mostly water, but 32.5% urea. That's DEF fluid, okay? Now, when that gets injected and that exhaust is already heated, a chemical reaction occurs and it changes to ammonia. So it is ammonia that breaks the NOx. So the sole purpose of SCR is to break up the NOx like we've been talking about before. So in this case, again, the ammonia is there. So the question I will tell you, and somebody wants a reply, I would appreciate a reply. If you want to go live, let's go live, is let's get one thing clear. If ammonia is changing the NOx, right, what dictates how much DEF fluid is being injected? Anybody? In other words, what regulates how much DEF fluid is out there? And Lee and James, if you want to join me, since you guys are instructors, you're welcome to join in on this discussion because we need to cover this. Anybody? I'm not alone in this, damn it. Anybody? Let's see, we got some comments here. Oh, Matthew's putting some other stuff on. Thanks a lot, Matthew. But anyways, any comments? Lee, where are you at? Are you still there, Lee? Why don't you get your mic on? Mr. James?
I'm here, buddy.
So, what determines how much DEF fluid is going to be injected?
Tony, I'm going to bail first when I say engineering and their calibration because they keep changing it every other month.
You got a point there, yes. But initially, everybody says that, we're looking at the input of the NOx sensors. So if NOx sensor 2 on the back tail of it is saying, hey, I see too many NOx, what's the computer going to do in turn?
Send me more.
Send me more. But in the General Motors article that I showed a while back on the Roundtable, we said that mine just went, no, ammonia, we talked about ammonia slip, and ammonia slip is actually what's left over of ammonia after the after treatment. Okay, so in this case, that's ammonia slip. In other words, what's left over. So in this case, if we are now showing on a scan tool, so this guy's working on a 2013 truck, right? And he's showing an ammonia level 2,400 milligrams. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have not worked enough with this kind of issue, but I can put 2 and 2 together here, okay? So he's getting this P207F, okay, the P027F, and in this case, we'll describe the code here in a minute, but in this case, it's the NOx efficiency. So therefore, okay, if we are generating too much ammonia, so what you're trying to say here, and this is what he's going, let me just highlight here, if you guys can see my cursor, he says that, you know, he's at 2,400, but then when the code is set, he's up to 9,200 milligrams of ammonia content. Now, this 6.7 Power Stroke does not have an ammonia sensor, correct, Mr. Lee?
That is correct.
So therefore, it is inferred based on possible NOx reduction. It must be an algorithm. It's got to be an algorithm. So in this case, he's figuring out what's going on to calculate it ammonia load based on, again, NOx content and also DEF fluid on time of what's being injected. So
that's where I was going with the calibration. Some engineers got this, we think, figured out until we get into reality out in the field.
yeah,
Engineers are always putting out stuff that later on we find out is not quite correct.
there you go. So that's why let me sidebar here. That's why the Cummins, you know, Ram Cummins 6.7 application does use legitimately an ammonia sensor and an ammonia slip catalyst. So let's keep that in mind, while Power Stroke and Duramax don't, okay? So let's keep that in mind. So once again, the problem here is that we are getting too high of an ammonia content. So the NOx ammonia load is 92 milligrams. It is loaded. So when I talk to Larry, and is Fred on, or is, I hope they're on. If not, get on the mic, or else I'm going to kill you guys. But in this case, I think Fred's on. And what I'm trying to say is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, if you're still on there, is that this truck sees how many miles? It's just a stop and go 4-mile truck. Is that what it is? I need to
There's
know.
a note up there on the fourth line, Tony. 2
Fourth
miles.
line, did I miss this? Yeah, the customer drives 2 miles to work. There you go.
Way,
So in this
way,
case,
way
thank you for
too
reading.
much.
Thank you for reading, yes. So it doesn't see a lot of time. So this is what they found here. I took the picture that Larry had texted me, and that was on this is that truck right there. So they call it the cauliflower. So in this case, what was this injector doing initially, though? You know, we're talking about the DEF fluid reductant injector here. So if it was puddling it that much for it to solidify, right? And not to mention, you know, that was in liquid form, in a spray form, and then it just started building up. So did it dry up pretty quick? So that would mean that if DEF fluid had solidified to that point, right? You know, that means I questioned the injector itself. In other words, a DEF fluid injector too, right? But this truck, bottom line, just looking at this picture tells me, did it see enough heat?
No.
What do you guys think? It did not see enough
No.
heat there.
No.
So in this case, we're definitely, and now that he tells me that, yeah, it drives 2 miles to work, yeah, we have a problem here, right? So in this case, we're not getting hot enough. And the problem is, like going back to that GM article now, that GM article stated that NOx sensor 2 cannot differentiate between ammonia and levels of NOx. So since he can't differentiate between them, he's going to indicate that the NOx levels are high, which in turn, the program's going to do what?
Give me more.
Give me more. So it's just going to add more. Let's get that clear. We have to remember this, because that, even when I said it months ago when I talked about this, I knew it was going to happen. So in this case, once again, NOx sensor 2 cannot differentiate between NOx and ammonia. So since he can't, he's going to give a high indication of NOx, which in turn is going to go ahead and tell the computer, hey, I'm not lowering the NOx. The computer in turn is going to go ahead and go to a higher, more spraying of DEF fluid, more volume of DEF spray being going in there.
And it
So
looks like,
it just
Tony, it looks
go ahead.
like, Tony, this guy's gonna end up with a restriction, and now we got another issue.
But he does mention that if you follow the bullets afterwards, he says that he cut open, they cleaned and baked it. Well, here's the point. Can you bake out that crystallized DEF fluid?
So,
I don't think so.
no,
No, I know that for a fact because yesterday I called my DPF because our DPF cleaner guy here in town, he actually does ultrasonic cleaning. Okay, so ultrasonic has a chance to break it up, but he says he's been so mediocrely, in other words, he hasn't been totally successful on all ones he's gotten. So let's get one thing clear. Cleaning or baking it is not going to, again, clean it all up. So this kind of explains why his, his number of milligrams of ammonia level are really high. So there's your thing. So what do we need to do here? Well, first of all, the repair would be, he already did the injector. He did an update program. The suggestion would be you have to replace the actual SCR catalyst. Okay, it's crystallized big time. So therefore I would love to gut that thing and see how it looks inside. But yeah, there's a lot of, it's demonstrating here by the high levels of ammonia calculated load that, yeah, he's got a lot of, I mean, if it was this bad on the inlet side, Jesus Christ, how is it on the middle of it? So we definitely got, and like I said, baking does not get rid of it. So let's get that clear. Okay.
And that's a lousy choice too, Tony, having to replace that catalyst because that's expensive.
Ain't my money.
Oh, yeah.
No. I get it. Yeah, you're right. It is very expensive. So, but unfortunately, okay. So let's go to the next step. If he replaces, how can we prevent this? He only drives 2 miles to work.
He needs a once a week, put at least 100 miles on it. I don't know. Take all the kids on the block to the ice cream store or something. Do something.
Yeah. If not, he needs to go on a, every 2 weeks, go on a regen or something like that.
Yep.
This is where I agree when aftermarket tuners have the ability to do regeneration because it needs heat. We need to get it hot. So does that make sense? So that's what we're looking at. So let's see. His questions are, question 1, is the SCR beyond repair? What do you guys think? Yeah, it's beyond repair. What sensor determines ammonia load? There is no sensor. It's actually a calculation. It's an algorithm based on, again, DEF fluid injection and NOx sensor input. Are we agreed on that one?
Yeah.
I am. And what is inside NOx emissions control area PID? What do you mean what is inside NOx control? That's actually the calculated
Tony,
content. Go ahead.
Tony, that is on my my scan tool. I have a Triton D10, and it is one of the PIDs, and it asks inside NOx emission control area, and then it gives you a yes or no.
Lee, you're a Ford guy. Do you know that one? I don't
I have no idea, Tony.
I'm gonna have to research that one for you, buddy.
Never seen that one.
There's a whole, as you see on my on the thing that was sent to you. There's a whole list of things like that NOx after treatment monitor evaluated, yes or no. What do I and it's like inside control area part. I have no idea what these mean, and there's
I can look it up in the Ford. There's a big chart in the Ford service information. I could look it. I'm sure I'll find it where they show all the PIDs.
And you were talking about using how we use we have all data, and I have stumbled across on one Ford year, I don't remember, but it gave the PIDs and what they were supposed to read at idle, and I think like half throttle and then full throttle. And I can't consistently get to that chart. I have one for General Motors. I've come across it, but I cannot consistently find, this information, and I'm kind of weak on the all data system. I really have a hard time finding things sometimes. Even when I type in it says search for, and I try to type in the correct thing, and it says no information found, or it leads me to changing a shock or something. instead of anything to do with what I'm trying to repair.
Would this be the range when you're driving the vehicle where it say, hey, you're in the control at that particular point when it says yes?
Possibly.
I don't
We
know.
don't, he doesn't know, James. I got to look it up on the Ford service info because I haven't used that info yet. So I have not used it. So I'll look it up for you. So I got notes for it. So I'll definitely look it up and I'll mention it. And then you got NOx after treatment monitor evaluated. So that's a monitor thing. So that would be NOx after treatment. So that's part of your emissions OBD2. Has it been evaluated? Yes or no? Has the monitor passed? That one I've seen before, similar to other trucks. So
Tony,
that one's talking about the emission monitor. That is
on-
for OBD2 for the plug-in for your OBD testing. And then you got a non-methane hydrocarbon catalyst monitor evaluated. Oh, I've seen this one too. I want to say this has got to do with the post injections. So, but you know what? I'm not going to BS you an answer, my friend. I will look up and give you, I'll actually copy and paste it and send it to you guys on an email where it's all at. So it's on the Ford service info. And this is why I like the Ford service info from Identifix, for the simple reason I'm getting genuine OE in their charts right off the bat. They are in all data, but you got to fish them out to see where they're at. So I'm not fluent on that anymore. So yeah,
can I say something else, Tony?
yeah.
That picture of the SCR that looked like a glacier meeting the ocean in the opening. That was actually out of a Dodge farm truck.
Well, I
And we
thought it
had
was the same truck because you said it was cauliflower.
yeah, but that was actually out of a Dodge farm truck that never saw the road. Uh,
I was
we
led to believe that was the same one.
no, the other one it's a whole unit. It's one big long torpedo, and we had to, and we took the Dodge to him. He cleaned it out, and the customer's very happy the way it's performing. So with this truck, we called the customer back in, come in, let us try to do it because we were successful with the first truck. And this is actually one unit, the diesel particulate filter, and then the SCR is all one long assembly. He cut it open, and we can only go by what our cleaner guy says. If he says he can do it and then it's successful, who are we to do, that's what he does for a living. Now, next time we're going to be a little suspect.
Yeah.
We're not going to take his word as the gospel.
No,
Also,
it's crystallized. You can't bake it out.
yeah.
So.
Also, on this particular on the 6.7 Ford, I went to on the Ford IDS. I went to powertrain, OBD test modules, and then I went to module 6 onboard test results.
Yeah, mode 6.
Okay. The only thing it failed on, and the only thing it failed on was diesel oxidation catalyst exotherm efficiency during regeneration, and it has OBD MID, and it has test ID 90.
Yeah,
It has minimum 39.9999% is minimum.
And maximum?
Maximum is 99.999%.
So 39.99.
And the value was 99.998. So it was at maximum. But that was the only thing it failed. In the future, see, I don't know I haven't done it on we're still getting the 6.5s and 6.0s and things like that, lots of those. So this is a new truck to us.
Yeah.
But that was the only thing it failed on, and it was way, right at max. So is that something that I can look at and condemn the SCR?
That's actually what I taught in the class last week, to use mode 6 data. Yeah. They do it in the automotive. We could be doing it in diesel. Yes.
Okay.
The mode 6 just telling you the minimum, the maximum. If it's within that range, that means it passes. If it's outside that range, then yeah, it's failed, and you got an indicator of what might be failing in that area.
These are all the things that the ECM is looking for when it runs the monitor test. As far as
okay. Tony, let me offer you and Fred this is going to be extremely difficult. Maybe you can give it to Fred, but pull down that probably 150 page OBD2, how these codes are set, what their thought process was in putting all these codes together and what they're looking at. But Tony, I mean, it's like reading a dictionary, boring as hell. But it's probably going to be in there because that's a monstrous thing that they present to the EPA to tell them how they're doing emission controls. It's some rough reading.
If you go to what he's talking about, Fred, and everybody else, is that if you go to motorcraftservice.com, click on resources, and you're going to see the OBD2 operation and theory, I believe the category is called.
That's it, Tony. Yep.
And you click on it, and you're going to locate, you're going to see a long list. Just look for that model year of truck you're working on. And like Lee just said, you can see all of the descriptions of all the monitors, how they work, from misfire to after treatment and fuel system and so on. It's a long, like Lee was not lying. It is a huge, and yours truly has gone through it. So
and every time they do a calibration, they got to update that thing. So you might have multiple updates, versions of the same OBD2 theory in operation.
that can help you, Fred?
Rough.
Yes. Wish we would have got to you this this is like a third comeback, and I don't like that. So wish we would have answered this maybe two trips ago for the customer.
You learn. So in this case, yeah, go to motorcraftservice.com, and like I said, click on resources, and you'll see the OBD2 section. Just look up your model there. So be prepared for some healthy reading.
And you can go in there and search that 207F code, but chances are you're going to get 100 hits on that Adobe file. But wade through them all. One of them might be what you're looking for.
This also brings another point as I'm looking at the questions here, guys, for the rest of you, is this is why you got to keep your scan tool updated. Because I know a lot of these PIDs I'm looking at for a 2013 truck, this is a 13, they weren't there. This is an update. So let's keep that clear there too. So, but always remember, like we're talking about here, is that we need to make sure that when we look at data, always want to look at data that is manufacturer specific, but then that's why even IDS has it and other scan tools have an OBD2 mode where you can watch the data there, which is different modes. I don't have those memorized, and then like Fred was talking about, you want to use mode 6. So maybe we ought to do a presentation, a review of mode 6 later on. So, and I just know somebody who knows mode 6 very well. He's online. We won't say his name, but anyways, there you go. I will get you these answers, questions 1 through 9, and those PID information off the Ford Service website, and I'll just send them to you on email. Okay, Fred? Give me some time though, because I got to prepare for tomorrow, but I'll try to get her done here today. I got lots of things going on, but I'll try to get to you.
Can I ask you another question, Tony?
Yeah, go ahead. Ask the guys.
I know you've mentioned this before, but on NOx sensors, when you back off of the throttle, they should go down to at least below 5 parts per million evenly, or maybe the number 1 goes first and the second one is not far behind it.
Correct. That's what I've seen on some, but I wouldn't call it a consistent test because there's other factors involved. But ideally, yes, what the books have said. I've read that.
Okay. I'll write that down. I just want so I don't forget. But that's something to look for in your normal test driving, but normal vehicles. Make note of that.
But remember, the problem that I see out there when it comes to these is that it's got to be up to temp.
Yes, I realize that.
Yeah. You got to be at least. I know that it's a challenge to get it up to 400 degrees or greater. So there are times where I'm diagnosing it that I will run a regen before I even start diagnosing it. Let's get this thing sky hot to see where it's at. So some people disagree with me, but I'm at the opinion, if I have a NOx sensor issue, saturation issue, ammonia load high, we're going to run a regen, which you have done. But that helps me analyze what's going on with the NOx sensors. But always remember that NOx sensor 2 is going to be fooled if there is a strategy to inject too much DEF fluid. So some guys have told me in the past, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the DEF and all the NOx and let me try again. Yeah, but if your catalyst is loaded, you will always indicate high. So I guess the question is, now that you're making me think here, is that how do we diagnose a saturated SCR catalyst or NOx catalyst? My theory in the past has been when everything else has been checked. So, And in this case, the numbers are telling me here, you got a saturated. I'm at the opinion, I'm almost think I'm positive here that I'm right. Given the miles that the truck is driven, given the fact that it already has had a baking, but I know baking is not going to clear that. And given the fact that it still only sees 2 miles and never gets hot, guess what? This thing is extremely saturated. So my worry would be, Fred, is once you replace the SCR catalyst, is how do we prevent this from happening again? Because it will happen again.
He's going to sell the truck. That's how he'll prevent it.
Because if I were to be teaching this class in like Virginia or Kentucky, they'd be, or Indiana, they'd be saying delete it. But in this case, can't delete it, so especially here in California. What's that?
Was that the only code, or was there a P20 BE or something like that?
That was the only code, and it had the symbol for DPF, quality and the limited mileage, limited speed. That was it. So that's why, and this is just that one code. I'm supposed to try to figure out this whole system, and it was like a big circle. They would go in and say, go to R10, and then it would go to something else. And either I missed something, I didn't catch it to go somewhere else, but I just kept, like I was lost running there. And as far as all data, running around in a circle, trying to figure out, well, this is good. And then I go back and say, well, that's good. And I may have missed a word or sentence that would have put me off in another direction, so I could have taken care of this sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Went to motocrossservice.com. You definitely want to look at that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it starts out with a P20EE or something like that. As a catalyst below inner threshold or something first, and then this code sets secondly. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah. In other words, had there been another company code causing it, that could, because even the as I go into as you can see here I'm on Identifix right now, and I'm in the Ford Service Info P207F. Obviously, they're going to tell you if you have any other company codes to go where. So, but then, when I was looking through this code, I'm sure you shared that frustration, was that obviously they want you to reset the SCR. And I'm sure you have IDS, so then you reset.
I did that, yes.
You did all that. Then they want you to go into temperature. So what they're doing is they're covering everything else to make sure you don't have a temperature issue, right? Then they want to make sure there's no other codes related that could cause it, such as pressure for the DEF fluid. And then the reductant concentration pit they want you to look at, supposed to be between 28 to 35%, which I'm sure you verified.
Yes.
So yeah, so in this case, it's trying to cover everything else, which eventually, if I finally follow the steps, it's going to eventually take us that we're going to have to make the assumption that we have in other words, overloaded SCR catalyst. So, but yeah, I mean, look at the list here of all the things they want you to inspect. So I get it. Yes. So in this case, sir, definitely I'm at the opinion. I'm sure these guys also agree that we have a saturated SCR. And now that they baked it, I think it made matters worse because you just solidified the holy crap out of all that urea and DEF fluid in there. So,
well, he was warned.
Yeah.
The customers warned. He came in late last year and he changed jobs, and he was having a soot loading problem. I didn't do it. Kelly Wilson ran a DPF regen on it, and he was warned. You can't drive it this short, or you're going to have a problem. And then by February, he was in the first time with this occurring. So it didn't take long for this to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't, especially with 2 miles a day.
And
Actually, 4 miles.
In just a summary, Tony, that everywhere from 2012 to about 2015 on the early 6.7s, that 207F code was all day long. The colder it got, the worse it got. And then Ford figured something out in 15 and 16 and beyond. And I don't see the 207F code as much as I did in the early days.
Probably changed the strategy on the DEF fluid injection.
The engineer figured it out because he got tired of writing TSBs.
Yeah. So, All right. Hopefully that helps you, Fred, but I'll do some research on those PIDs that you want the information and I'll get it to you. So you can know what it all means.
One more question, and I don't want to take over
No,
the
it's
whole
okay.
thing.
That's what it's all about, the roundtable.
One more question on the test strips. Now, I believe they have a shelf life, don't they? They expire. Uh, and like we try to get them from Ford, and they want us to buy a whole bunch of them. They're quite pricey. I realize we could probably charge the customer.
Accustrip.com is one, and the other one is, like I said, dieselcraft.com.
Dieselcraft?
Dieselcraft.com.
And I'm pretty sure Ford buys them from AccuStrip.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, actually they do. I know that for a fact. So
I'll let you carry on. Thank you for the help.
no, it's okay. We're here to help. All right, very good. Matthew, you got some comments there. Let's change the subject now. Matthew put some stuff there. Go ahead and talk about it, Matthew. Are you on? Let's see, what did he bolt off? Intake, grid heater, bolt failure. 6.7 Ram Cummins. Seen articles from banks, but also one in our shop now. Oh, where the grid heater failure. Yeah, we know about that. What about it though? Also hearing the 2019 Cummins hydraulic roller lifter failure. You know, I saw one guy mention it to me, but I haven't done homework on that. So once again, anytime I've seen rocker failure, anytime we see lifter failure, I question the quality of the motor oil, but also how much RPMs is this thing running too. So
that's exactly what I was going to say, Tony. Oil change intervals. The oil is breaking down. It's full of fuel, everything else that's created from a diesel engine, and it just turns the oil into crap, especially with fleets.
Because they extend those oil change intervals big time.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So Tony, Matthew coming on here.
Yep.
Oh, I'm going to make a couple comments on the last thing, but since we're talking about the Ram now, I'll just say, and that was a fleet, yes, but I did mention in the comments, I talked to a engine rebuilder who is rebuilding a lot of Cummins, a small rebuilder, and he so far has not gotten into building these 2019 and newer, but what he understands in the industry at wide, this is becoming a pretty serious problem with basically the same problem that the CP4 has, where the roller, the guide pin is breaking and the roller's twisting and coming sideways, and that's what's destroying these things. Again, lubrication's no doubt a factor, but the industry is saying, hey, maybe what we need to do is revert back to a conversion kit to get ahead of the problem. So I agree that way. Yeah, agree oil could be a factor here, but then also I mentioned about the grid heater. Are many of you seeing that problem? I guess was one of my questions. And if so, it seems like from what I'm hearing, maybe it's the early versions of 6.7, we weren't seeing that. At least I wasn't aware of, and this is the first one we've seen. But I'm hearing more of the mid, like maybe in the teen models is where this is becoming a problem. Maybe there was a metallurgy problem or something of that sort. Just wonder if anybody had any thoughts, and then to that, and then back to the other gentleman's thing with that F-250. I agree with all that heat thing. Something else that was coming to my mind is obviously with that stop and go like that, are we potentially building more caking on the EGR system that's barely even getting functioning in that 2-mile run, and therefore it's calling for more DEF to be injected to try to reduce that NOx in that small amount of time? Was another factor that crossed my mind. In relationship to, yes, maybe this customer might get rid of this, but if you have a customer that is trying to keep the vehicle on the road, how to prevent it in the future, you said about going and running, that's a must. And maybe even, at least once a week or once every a week or something, is going to be important to do that for sure. I do know too, and I think we had discussed this on a previous roundtable, that the drive cycle, to make sure that all of that clears. We had one here, and I was just talking to Wesley, one of our techs here. If you follow that full drive cycle to get all that to be for sure cleared, you'll have 2 hours or better in that drive cycle to get all the decel Or at least if you don't have an interstate nearby, maybe you do out there, Tony, but to go get to the, where you can do all the decel to get that NOx reduction checked, it can be rather extensive in verification that you've actually post repair, I guess is what I'm also saying. So
Yeah. But
One
you
other-
got to remember, in his daily life, we're just not reaching any light off temperature.
right, exactly.
We could reset and do everything, but again, I agree. But the problem is going to persist. But he said he's selling it, so I guess that's not a big deal now. So, but it is
Yeah.
going to cost money to replace that SCR, because does the aftermarket, and as a matter of fact, maybe you know, Matthew, does the aftermarket sell that catalyst for that application by itself? Because it's all part of one assembly through
Yes.
Ford.
And so my understanding, the last we had some dealings with it about a year or a year and a half ago or so, no, it does not. There is not a whole catalyst built at this point, including you talked about the ultrasonic cleaning. My local shop that does that too is using a company called Recore to recore the DPF. And on the ambulance we struggled with here a year or so ago, they did not have the SCR brick yet, because there's different material or chemicals that are on that catalyst brick to actually reduce the NOx reduction. And probably one of the things that could be happening is, as you said, about bacon, or some of that material being washed off of the to make the chemical reaction to change. One of the questions I also thought about, you've talked about, to be able to check SCR or NOx reduction separately, a 5-gas analyzer. Would that also be able to detect ammonia, or is there any other tool that we could actually test for ammonia slip too on vehicles that don't have a slip catalyst or a slip sensor?
Nope, unfortunately not.
Nothing
I
out
don't know
there.
of any, because NOx sensor, the 5-gas analyzer I mentioned before, let me get that one out of the way, is just going to check the status of NOx sensor 2 operation. That's it. So
Okay.
in other words, is he really telling you the truth of what the NOx levels are in parts per million? So, but apart from that, nope, there's nothing out there that I've seen out in the trade that tells us the concentration of ammonia content. So the only thing we could see is, like you just saw in Fred's, data, PID data, is that there is a calculated, milligram of how much ammonia there is. So
Gotcha.
that's all I can tell you. So, but yeah, very good. But you're right. It's a problem. So that means, Fred, you're looking at a whole complete assembly, unless you can find it. I didn't tell you this, but unless you find it on eBay used. But there you go. I didn't tell you that. You're not supposed to put used stuff in it. So per California law. So anyways, look at all new ones. So excuse me. All right. So nobody has seen, like Matthew's been talking about, any of this Cummins on the 17 and later? 19, haven't seen no issues with the crank, piston skirt issues or anything like that. I haven't. So, and those trucks I've seen have not had that issue. So, and these are stock trucks, Matthew?
My understanding, I'm not saying not, the one locally was stock. I don't know, it was modified. And from what I'm gathering, I'm not saying not the one that, I don't have a feel for multiple units myself, but in talking with that engine builder, he didn't say that these were all modified trucks that were having this problem. So I got the impression nationwide, this is probably stock trucks. There could be some modified ones in there too, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else, any other input on that? Nothing. Okay. Let's see. That's about what I have to say. Any other comments from anybody? Matthew, thank you once again for participation. We agree it. Lee, you got anything else going on? What's been going on in your world, Lee?
You wouldn't believe it, Tony. Last 2 weeks, I've been fighting the ground again.
Ground. Explain.
Had an outfitter put on extra stuff and hack into the CAN network, and it was a ground issue. We played hell, but we found it. It was for the Forest Service.
And what was the symptom?
Everything. The dash was lighting up like a Christmas tree, and it ended up being a ground. And what they did is they ended up stacking multiple grounds back there on that frame rail again. I'm gonna start going there first and asking, what did you guys do? Where did you get the grounds for all this add-on stuff?
And this is the ground that's located in the mid or rear.
Back there on the frame rail.
Yeah, on the rear one. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And it's an outfitter, Tony, that you know, we got younger guys that were trying to bring up to speed with the things that you and I put up with for so many years. And all they have is an air ratchet and, oh, let's just stack it up. We don't want to pay attention to how it's getting connected. But after you do that and you go on to something else, and then you start having issues, then it makes you rethink where you got to go back to, what did I do? Where did this, should I have gotten another ground instead of stacking it on 6 grounds that were already there?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
It's just an opportunity to have a mess,
All righty.
but we got it. It's running again. I want all those fire trucks to be in good shape for when the fires start here in Colorado.
Got it. Anthony Greco states in the chat, any news on the 2020 and newer L5P thumping at idle? Ooh, anybody seen that? I haven't. But I got to tell you something, Anthony, if you don't mind me saying, what I'm doing now in my classes and working on L5P, and Matthew, I told him this before, is what we've been now recommending is actually look at your misfires, history and live misfire misfire PIDs on your scan tool. Pull up misfire PIDs and see if you do have a misfire going on before we start going after the regulators, being the one on the pump and also the one on the rails, FRPRs. So I will definitely recommend you to check misfires. Look up your misfires. That's something we don't do in this line of work, even though gasoline does it all the time, is we need to start looking at misfires, see what's going on with an injector / cylinder. But yeah. Anybody else have any other suggestions for Anthony on this thumping at idle? I have not seen it, but I am now been using the misfire to identify if there is a cylinder causing the issue before I go after the fuel system. So anybody?
But Tony, this is Fred. On the L5Ps, would you recommend when you change an ejector, would you recommend also changing the harness connector at the same time?
Well, I don't know where the cutoff point is. We did have the pigtail harness connector issue, but I would say from 2017 to 2019, yes, but as of 2020, I don't know. Unless you guys got input on this, but I can't validate that they fixed it or not, the pigtail problem on 2020 and later. But I would definitely say yes on 2017 to 2019, but on 2020, I believe the problem's been fixed, but don't quote me on that. So, and Anthony, what he's talking about, since you asked the question, we were having pigtail problems with the these injectors too. So, but the way I've learned how to isolate is, it was there in front of me, was use the misfire history and live history PID data. So there you go. So
Well,
Fred, I'm unless any of you got under input, I'd like to hear it.
Tony, this is Matthew. I would tend to agree with that at this point. I haven't heard either if there's been any other changes, but definitely at 17 to 19, I think I'd be thinking about changing them. And I even our experience here seems to be, I would go to the wiring pigtail first before I even replace the injector.
Correct.
Because that seems to be more the trouble than the injector themselves in most cases that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I would be
Most
curious
definitely.
what he Anthony is talking about, this thumping sound. I wonder if he could come on and
Anthony, if you just want to turn on your microphone, dude, just turn on your mic. You could just tell us,
tell us what he's actually hearing.
Unless he wants to type it in. So, Anthony, are you still there? He better be still there. Because I know we passed somebody's lunchtime already. That's why I see some leave already. But let's see, is he on still? He's still there. Let's see, I just asked him to unmute his mic. Let's see if it works. I guess not. Anthony, if you're still there, we'd like to hear more. But what you mean by thumping? I'm thinking it's causing a surge. That's what I interpret it as. So It's a thump at idle, he says. All right, he's saying it's a thump at idle. So when you say thump, is it like all of a sudden just an RPM rise, a hesitation? What? We need a little more description is what we want to know. RYTH. It's a rhythmic. Boy, we got somebody's.
Uh-uh.
What the hell was that?
Dog wanted to go outside.
All right. A thump, thump, thump. So yeah, okay. So you're talking about like a surge that say, okay, definitely want to check that, my friend, to see what's going on because fueling will cause that. So definitely want to check that. How many miles on the truck there, Anthony? Like to know how many miles on it too. So see if he tells me. So,
Tony,
but
well,
anyways, yeah.
he's working on that. Wondered, would Lee be willing to share his email or all or not, or even through you get?
No, don't bug him. Don't bug him. He's
Okay.
already busy enough. You gotta have to ask him. So,
I sent it to you, Tony. Look at your email when you get caught up.
all right, I'll forward it on to him. All right, I'll do that here as soon as I log off. So, well, I'm gonna go eat
Thanks, Lee,
breakfast. I'm gonna go eat
and Tony.
breakfast first. But I'm gonna eat breakfast first. I'm hungry this morning. All right, very good. So, any other comments? All right, here's the deal, guys. Like I said, training, my bread and butter, a lot of it is training. So therefore, powertrain training website. Some of you, like Matthew's been using the dieseltg.com. Definitely I want to go to Diesel TG if you want to post. Matthew's posted, other people have posted. So if you need help with something and we need to get some more activity on the Diesel TG website, just click on forums and become a member. It's all free. It's technicians helping technicians. So go to dieseltg.com. Don't rely on this. And please, like I said at the beginning, if you need training, get the training. I mentioned air conditioning at the beginning. We do have other courses. I do have the Diesel Master course online now, and Matthew's been doing it slowly but surely, and Matthew, you got to get your other guys to get on it too. So therefore I continue to upload. I see more and more quizzes and tests. So it is everything that is covered in my Diesel Master course online. So Matthew, so far, what have you been thinking of it? I mean, give me an honest answer. We're taking criticism too.
So Tony, as you can see, I've got started and I'm slow at it. I need to get
That's okay.
into it deeper, but I think it's good stuff. I would recommend it. The guys need to get up to speed. It would be good foundation, and not just foundation, but good reinforcement for things we already know, and reminders of things we should be aware of. So I definitely recommend it. So
I've already had good on the one of the first sections is diesel fuels, and I've had guys email me or text me say I didn't know a lot of that stuff in there. I go, well, that's basics about diesel, so you got to know it. So if you don't know, obviously this is a good place to know. And if you haven't seen the clip that I made on it, go to the website powertraintraining.com, and you can also look at it. So that's it. Anthony came back finally. He says that he's going to send a video. And Anthony, 23,000 miles. Wow. So yeah, definitely send me let me put my email up there for anything you want to send me. So my email is tsalas@dieseltg.com, and we'll see. You can also send me an email there, my friend. So all right, and those of you that may make an email if you got any questions or anything. So any last items? Lee, James, anything going on in your world? You haven't talked much, Mr. James. You got anything going on? I know the dog had something going on, but anything else going on with you guys? Anybody else? Did Carl join us today? I didn't see Carl there. I need to talk to Carl, see what's going on with Mr. Carl, but we'll go from there. So, all right, I guess James is not there, but anyways, with that, any estimated items? Any other comments? Once again, everybody that's been on, Matthew, you, Lee, James that did his comments, Fred, thank you for all the content. We will see you next month. Look for other webinars and stuff going on the website. Until then, we will see you next time. Hasta la vista.